Welcome back to Star Wars News Net. We are here for the Timeline Show on yet another Saturday where Luke and I make our way through every canon piece of material in the Star Wars timeline. Call it our passion project, if you will. Please hit that like, subscribe button. Follow us on Apple and Spotify at Star Wars Newsnet as well. Leave us a 5-star review. Give us the sub there. Let us know what you think. We are here, camped out in the year 232 BBY. Once again, we have 2 episodes left of the Timeline Show, and then we are finished with Season 1 of Young Jedi Adventures. We have the penultimate Young Jedi Adventures podcast today. We will be doing the finale next week. For those of our weekly Timeline Show listeners, I apologize for not having a Timeline Show for you last week. We were a little bit busy. As always, I'm joined by my good friend Luke Sheehan. How are you today, Luke? You got the Star Wars. You always rock the Star Wars gear for our pods, which makes sense. We are a Star Wars podcast, so.
I try to. Today has been a long day. I went to a breakfast at 6 a.m. and then went to a full day work, and here we are now. So yeah, it's been a good day. Repping the Star Wars as always. I try to with some either t-shirt or sweatshirt.
Before we get into the Star Wars, I have to get something off my chest. Like, intensely.
Do it.
So I'm sitting here. We're recording this on a Wednesday night. The Indiana Fever just lost their playoffs game and they're eliminated from the playoffs. I have 2 things to talk about. Bear with me, people. Even if you don't like basketball, you might just enjoy listening to me sound off for a minute, and my voice could go out at any time. I was reading a lot of Harry Potter to kids today, and now I've been screaming at the television for the last 45 minutes, so bear with me. Number 1, it is just incredibly stupid and undeniably wrong that a team can make the playoffs and not be guaranteed a home game in the playoffs because you do a best out of 3 first-round series where the higher seeded team gets 2 games at home, right? Like, it should be best of 5 at a minimum. They had the money this year to make that happen because the ratings were up across the board. Next year, you better damn sure, this needs to happen next year, but it is absolutely ridiculous that teams like the Fever, the Dream, and the Mercury are playing right now can make the playoffs, not be guaranteed a home game. Those fans should be guaranteed to watch their team play at least once. Then the other part of that that's also ridiculous is if the Fever were to win tonight, the game 3, the ultimate deciding game, because it's a best of 3 first-round series, would be played in Indiana. They're the lower seeded team. They shouldn't have the end all be all game for both teams and their place. No, it's completely backwards. It's absolutely ridiculous. The WNBA has to fix that for next season, or like that will get out and protest in front of headquarters if that doesn't happen. Second thing, and then we're going to get to Star Wars. How many times do I have to watch Marina Maybury go off an 18 to 20 foot screen, take 1 dribble, and shoot a semi-uncontested jump shot in a row, like on a clinic? Like, they are doing that every single time. Like, hedge out. Be quicker on the switch. Have the help defender roll to the basket. What are we doing every freaking drive? Possession. It felt like that for about 10 minutes. I lost it. I can't do it. I can't do it, Luke.
And you being a basketball coach, I mean, this is something that would just absolutely drive you up a wall.
You know what might have happened? Call a timeout, address this one specific thing that they're doing over and over, and not wait until 6 minutes in the game to finally adjust. Maybe that is like what we need to do going forward.
I think so. Adjust on the fly, just like you might have to in the caves of Batuu. That's right. We are
because in the caves of Batuu, episode 23 of Young Jedi Adventures, part 1. We are back on Batuu, which was very exciting because we have Master Dro and his Padawan Celesta, who I am low-key just a big fan of in general. Now, in this episode, Kai learns that being perfect is not the priority of the Jedi. And he learns this from Master Dro himself. Now, Luke, where do you stand on Master Dro and Celesta, this episode in general? Like the learning of you don't have to be perfect to be great at something. And the expectation of being perfect is too much for anyone to like hold on to. What did you think about that?
This one really hit home for me. And
Okay.
to hit that first point, Master Drow and Celesta are very cool characters. I don't think they show up anywhere else. I think this is their debut. Young Jedi Adventures is. They're really cool characters. They look cool. Master Drow is awesome. He in this episode does this insane lightsaber sequence where he's running off the side of buildings and tarps and throwing his lightsaber. It's insane what he's doing. It's really cool.
In the notes, I wrote, when I think of lightsaber sequence, I think of something to do with the forms. What Master Dro was doing was his best Simone Biles impression with a lightsaber. That's essentially what Master Dro was doing. Lightsaber sequence. He was just running around, like twirling, like he's in like what do you call it? The color guard in high school, and then mix in a little bit of a Simone Biles floor routine in there, and that's essentially what Master Dro was doing. I think he twirled the saber once. No,
I'm with you here because
I have to go off on Master Dro for that a little bit.
Yeah, I was expecting like we've seen in Star Wars Rebels, like there's these forms you go into. There's this sequence. I'm expecting some kind of like flares, cool twirling around. No, he's running off the side of buildings and I'm like,
look at this new sequence I practice.
Yeah, I'm like I don't think
was just
that
doing
counts.
Jedi parkour.
Great job. But like, I don't think that fits the definition of nitpick there. But Master Drow, you're very cool. Also, another guy with a yellow lightsaber. So we love adding
love our guys with the yellow lightsabers. I have to say, when it was nice when Kai was doing like the training sequence and they had like the pink like mist and he couldn't see and he had to like deflect the bolts like without being able to see anything. I really like just the use of like the color pink and to have like the pink mists going. I don't know, it's just like the color blend was really good, and then his green lightsaber just kind of really popped in that mist as well.
Yeah, that's just the Young Jedi Adventures in general. Maybe even as the show has gone on, it's just become very nice to watch. Like it's very nice to look at. The colors pop. It's a very colorful show. High Republic is a very colorful time. Honestly, like the prequels are not. That's a good point. So it's great to watch. Like if you haven't checked this out yet, and you're just watching our timeline show, like please go watch the show for yourself. It's great to watch.
Honestly, I mean, Kai did a great job trying to do the Simone Biles floor routine.
He did.
For a youngling. Like, he did a pretty good job. Like, he was so, like, heartbroken afterwards. But honestly, I was, like, impressed. Like, I was impressed.
Yeah, he actually, like, got pretty close. He didn't complete what Master Drow did, but for being, 10-ish, like, he got very close. Also, to the point of this episode, like I think it hits home for me very hard. I might not be someone who is doing 100 things a day or anything like that. Like I'm a pretty lax person, but like I struggle with some like perfectionism in my life. I want to be the best, perfect at everything I do, and that's just not possible. And it can really mess with you if you don't keep that in check. And then this is just a really good lesson to just ground yourself in the fact that like if you're not perfect, which none of us will be, that is okay and that is great. Like don't strive for perfection, strive to be good and great at what you do.
I'm like such a hyper achievement focused individual, and that's just how like my brain operates. Like I need to have a goal, I need to destroy that goal, I need to immediately start conquering the next one. And if I feel like I'm failing to do any of those things, I feel like I'm failing as a person sometimes. Again, it's really difficult to check yourself and always have like positive self-talk and remember that failure is okay. Like that's part of the process. As a teacher, that's something that's really, really important. We talk about how we have to like celebrate successes all the time as teachers, and that is so vital. But like encouraging children through their failures, I feel like is even more important as well, because if we're constantly just getting on them when they mess up here, we have to assume that children need help. We have to assume that children need guidance. These aren't adults that we're working with. And Kai, like similarly, Master Dro is like, I need to assume that this Padawan, this youngling, needs assistance, and I have to like provide him with what he needs. However, the Jedi's methods of providing this assistance always seems to be dropping them in to these insane, like crazy, like caves and force vision caves that do just insane things to them. I don't know if that's always the best strategy, just to throw a youngling in a situation where they might be trapped for good. We've seen this happen to Kai. Obviously, this happens to younglings in the Clone Wars. We saw Kanan basically drop Ezra off in one of these in Rebels. What, as you know, a Star Wars fan, Luke, what do you think of the method of the Jedi here? The best way to learn the lesson is to abandon them in a Force temple.
Right, just completely throw them to reckless abandon.
Throw them to the Force wolves.
I'm glad that we haven't had any stories where it goes poorly. It seems like every time we do see this trope reoccur, which I love it every time, they get out of it fine, but it's like you do know there's risk involved here. Like if this is real life, like don't choose this option. Okay.
Isn't it Rebels where when Ezra and Kanan are walking in and there's like the skeletons and Ezra's like, what are those? It's like the masters whose apprentices never made it back to them.
Yes.
Do you think that's you think that was real, or do you think that was like the Force just doing something?
I think there were really skeletons there, but I think Kanan was having fun poking at Ezra, trying to like knock him down a peg.
Or maybe like Kanan went and like put those there before. He's like, I'm gonna like really scare.
He might have.
So the Force visions themselves are really fun. A couple of things that I wrote down from the notes. How come in all of these like Force temple visions, at least one person or the main person involved always seems to fall into a black abyss of some kind to wake up with their like arch nemesis right in front of them every time?
Yeah, and you're saying that's for Kai's every time, or pretty much just like each
No, I mean like anytime someone
anytime
goes
we see this trope. Yeah. I don't know. It's certainly like forces a lot of character development in whatever episode that happens, because they're automatically forced to be like, well, time to deal with my deepest, darkest fear immediately. Okay, let's go.
Because like he falls down, like Kai falls down, he wakes up and Tabor is just chilling over there, and he's got to like fight Tabor, which ironically though, it's Tabor who convinces Kai and teaches Kai that ultimate lesson of like, I'm not going to be perfect. I'm not going to give in though to the easy path in a way. He doesn't like, it's not like he's rejecting the dark side, but he's rejecting like the darker intentions possibly that are within him.
Yeah, definitely Clone Wars, even like Yoda has a trippy little sequence in that series, but he's fighting off darkness, the actual dark side. This one is like a tamed down version, like he's fighting like dark intentions, like someone who just wants the quick easy path to greatness. So yeah, that lesson is absolutely nailed home there. That like,
and then we get Ember and Bell real briefly.
Yes, so we're going to talk about them a lot more in Light of the Jedi, but we've already talked about them on this show.
I wrote down this line when Ember, or he sees Ember, he runs and Bell's there. And he's like, Kai, we will always be here for you, Kai. And I'm just, in my heart, I'm going like, make sure my boy is okay. Moving forward, please. Like, make sure that my good friend Bell's at afar. Nothing happens to him. Like, can you imagine, like, having watched this, let's say down the line, like Bell dies in the High Republic, and there's somehow we see Kai find out about this, like that would break my little heart. Can't take it anymore.
That'd be insane. June 17th, Charles Soule drops Trials of the Jedi. Bell dies. Oh
man. Stop. All right, part 2, Finders Keepers. We learned the valuable lesson here that sharing is caring when we are introduced to Nash's friend Aaron, whose droid loses its power cell, basically gets kind of wiped out by Nash's droid RJ, but we're not going to talk about that very much. And they are like scrappers on Braca, which we've seen Braca before. I'll let you talk about Braca for a minute, Luke, but we learned that sharing is caring here. Tell us, how did you resonate with this episode as they had to work with the other scrappers to come to a compromise that ultimately led to everyone getting kind of what they wanted?
Compromise is a tough one. Because honestly, like I've even heard it described before, like the idea of compromising is if both people are a little bit unhappy with what's going on, you probably have reached a good compromise. Like nobody should be feeling like they won the trade if you're getting a truly neutral good compromise. So it's nice that hey, both sides here with the pick gang, like the Scrappers and Aaron, like they actually come out, both of them getting pretty positive results from the idea of trading and compromising. So
tell us about Braca.
Braca, we have seen, you know me, I'm the lore guy. Braca we've seen twice, probably most notably in Jedi Fallen Order. That's where we start with Cal. That's where you start piloting him around, controlling his character around to Shipyard. Apparently, even back in the High Republic, we see it's like always been kind of a junkyard. We also see this planet pop up in Bad Batch. So
yes,
it's just always littered with like broken down ships and stuff. It's just a junk world, kind of. Yeah.
So Nash introduces us to one of her friends, Aaron, who's a scrapper on Braca. And like the crew, this kind of, they're learning how to be scrappers on Braca. They're like getting a little scrapper lesson today. But Aaron's droid is named Mimi. RJ essentially just wipes out Mimi and takes out the power cell. And so they have to go scavenging for power cells for the droid M1M1 or Mimi. And these little gangs of pick-picks or whatever they're called. I have it written down here. The freaking pick-picks. What a bunch of losers. These little rodent-looking, rat-looking, infested scrappers that steal their power cells. I mean, they're like just a weird-looking bunch of aliens, right?
They are.
Do you know what they're called?
I was looking at that because I thought I wrote that down, but I don't see that immediately popping out to me. They are, I do believe when I researched it, they like hadn't shown up in canon before. So they're this like little mouse, weird nose looking little species. So very odd to look at.
I will say there's always a freaking Dianoga involved with these like junkyard or scrap metal places. Is that the same one that's in Bad Batch? Like, or like it's like the same area. Like we see a Dianoga in Bad Batch, don't we? Like,
yes, we do. So let's just go ahead. I think it's safe to assume. Let's just say it's the same exact one. I don't know how long they live.
What's the lifespan? What's the lifespan of a Dianoga?
It's a great question.
Like what's the lifespan? All right, you look up the lifespan of that real quick. I want to know, like, if there is actually like canonical proof or evidence to suggest how long one lives. Because if it's more than a few hundred years, then we are going to say that this is the first canon appearance of the same one that appears in the Bad Batch. Let me know when you have that, and I'll keep going over here. So one of these lines that I absolutely loved from Aaron, and I feel like I connected with Aaron on a personal level because she goes, when Mimi starts dying and she goes, "No, I need my best buddy with me." And I'm like, no, her best buddy. Like I talk about my best buddy all the time. Like my best buddy BD1 from Fallen Order. He's like my best buddy just going around. If you refer to your droid as your best buddy, we're instantly friends. Like I can relate to you on like a deep emotional level. If you just refer to your droid as your best buddy, like that's all I need. That's all I need. And so I was, Aaron, you got this. And the pick noises that they make to communicate are hilarious. It's like something like that. I don't know.
That was really good. Let's give a round of applause if you're watching, because it takes guts to even try.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's Jawa-esque almost.
It is kind of Jawa-esque in a way.
I researched.
Were we able to find anything about the Dianoga? Nothing.
I was looking on the Wikipedia site. I don't see anything about.
All right, we're gonna say they live to be 800 years, and that is the same one because sure, why not? Like, if there's not anything out there, I have to use the best knowledge I have. So I'm going to go with my gut here. What did you think about the ultimate compromise they made? They helped them fix their ship. They had a communication, open dialogue. And instead of this whole finders keepers thing with the scrappers, they worked together. And ultimately one group got the power cells they needed and the other got some parts to fix their ship.
Yeah, this is a great example of how good compromise can go. And really, like, I think it to me, I'm stumbling over my words, but like, I think there's this lesson of like, I'm going to assume most people don't have my best intentions or that they want to
Mhm.
even do me harm or steal from me. But then
Mhm.
you can kind of negate that or even destroy that if you just actually open a dialogue and talk to someone and
Right.
ask for help and maybe just throw a line out there, just
Mhm.
open your heart to someone.
Absolutely.
You're going to find that people will relate to you more than you think they will, I think is the point. And
I think
so,
we're losing that as a society. Like the fact that
yeah,
there is so
yeah,
much more that we have in common than what pushes us apart. And the
there
fact
really
that
is.
I think, are forgetting that at the end of the day, we're gonna all have to live and communicate with one another. And so like having like an irrational dialogue is so important. And I think because of social media and because of the rhetoric that's being used by like our political leaders, by you know people in the online like sphere of just like really like ramping up like the intensity of the rhetoric, it's given people like this platform to feel like they can be as intense as they want. And because we spend like time like scrolling and doom scrolling, I think we forget that most people are just regular average people, that if you have a conversation with them, you could probably find something that like you enjoy together. And I think a part of that's the problem. The Oklahoma City Thunder, this is basketball for a minute. The GM had
Go for it.
the GM had like their opening press conference today for the season, like first media day. And he said, social media is a sport. Scrolling is a habit. And I was like, you know what? Like, that's a
Hmm.
bar. Like, like just talking
Yes.
about, social media is a sport. Like we all have to some degree nowadays compete on social media or use social media to leverage what we have. But what we don't have to do is be endlessly scrolling and reading all the comments and engaging with all of the comments. And I think all of those, like, that's good. Like that's some wisdom right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot more people need to employ that. Like, I've heard this said a lot, and I love it. And that is protect your peace. However, that you
Hmm.
need to do that, you should be able to go online and have a good time.
Hmm.
However, you need to
And
cultivate
that's what
that.
I love about the timeline show that we do every
Yeah.
Saturday, because we
Yes.
don't love all of these pieces of canon material. Like I can't tell you, I sat down and watched every episode of Young Jedi Adventures, just so excited to watch another episode of Young Jedi Adventures. But what we like to do is come in, have a good time talking about it, and engage from it in a like a not like a this is going to be the greatest next piece of canon material, but in a way that is a good natured, like we're gonna have fun. We love Star Wars. Let's find something to talk about in this, joke around. We can talk about the things that don't work from us. We've done that before with episodes of this show, books that we aren't a fan of, maybe comic arcs that we don't like as much, or
Yes.
other forms that we aren't necessarily fans of. But we find a way to come at it. I think we come at it from a good place, and that's what I really like about this show, and being able to sit down with you and talk, because I know that like the toxicity isn't going to be in the room. Like we're going to be able to say that. And at the end of the day, like we're going to probably disagree sometimes on this, but we just, we're having a good conversation about Star Wars.
Yeah. I wish more people could have that because I mean, Star Wars itself is a place where
Hmm.
negativity can
Yeah.
be promoted. So,
Hmm.
yeah, this is a very valuable space for me because I
Hmm.
have a lot of love for Star Wars. Maybe if Young Jedi Adventures isn't my favorite thing I've ever watched
Hmm.
before, it's an extension of Star Wars. It's in that realm. I
Hmm.
have love for it. Let's talk about it.
Right.
Like
Hmm.
it can be as simple as that.
Yeah. So episode 24, the Starship Show, and Nash's Uncle Lugs learns that you can't always hold on to the perfect image of something, as he has his XD speedster that is like the state-of-the-art fastest ship in the sector type, starship, and it gets stolen by none other than our good friend Draven Bosch, not Chris Bosch, Draven Bosch. And
Looks
they
about the
have to
same though.
go and steal it back. But Uncle Lugs is so obsessed with not piloting this thing. It has to be pristine and perfect and never leave the box, so to speak. And ultimately, it's like the ship is meant to be flown. They have to fly it to get out, and they save the ship from Bosch. But what do we think about this episode, real quick, before I tell you why Uncle Lugs is literally the worst character in this entire series?
Worst. I would love to hear that. You know, this kind of gets at collecting, and I try to hold a lot of reservement for collecting because it's not something I feel called to do, but I have a ton of respect for people who do collect and have these cool collections. I love to see that. If you're into that, go for it. I love it. It's not for me. I don't have the space in my house. I don't have the need to have a bunch of stuff. I'm good.
That's why you become a teacher, so you can just put like, yeah, I'm telling you, I have like a whole bookshelf. It's just like a bunch of pop figures.
I love that. I love that you have that. I genuinely do. I just don't need that for myself, and I love being able to hold that.
So, all right, are you ready for why Uncle Lugs is the worst?
Let's hear this.
He's a grade A weirdy and a grade A wimp. Okay. First of all, he's kissing the starship in front of these young children. Like, they're like, hey, Uncle Lugs, why don't we go over here and look at something? He's like, no, let me go make out with the XD Speedster real fast. Okay. He's like crying at the mere thought of someone sneezing on this thing. Then he couldn't even get the tow cable attached before without fear of doing something. Like, dude, he's like a helpless giant baby. Like this guy, I don't know. I cannot believe this person is related to Nash Durango, who is like the take charge, like, you know, badass kid that's going to do whatever, you know, she needs to do to make things like happen. And I can't believe that like she's related to Uncle Lugs. Like even the name, like, come on, Lugs, Uncle Lugs. Like,
Nash Durango has a very kick butt name. She sounds cool. Uncle Lugs? He just doesn't even sound cool. Work on the name, dude. Change your name.
Change your uncle. Like, no, they need to like just kind of excommunicado Uncle Lugs from the family. Call John Wick.
John Wick.
Call John
That's
Wick.
Good.
The Continental has denied Uncle Lugs access to Tanu from his fourth. So, what do you think about Draven? He's literally the worst. I think he's my least favorite villain in the show. Not as in like I don't think he's a good character, but like I genuinely like don't like this like sleazebag.
Yeah, he's probably the most fun to root against. Like I just never see a shred of redemption that I even want for him. I'm like, I want this guy to fail. Yeah, like
or morality.
He's always stealing other people's stuff. With other villains that we see, villains like at least, you know, Raxlow and Tabor are like bad, but they're doing it in different ways. I don't know. Draven Bosch is just stealing someone else's stuff that you already have like attached in your head that belongs.
It's the con artist aspect of it. Like he'll distract someone, he pretends to be something he's not, and then he has someone else steal it behind the scenes. At least with like the Gangles or Tabor or whatever, they'll just flat out be like, we're in the open, we're the gangsters, we're the bad people, we're gonna take your stuff, we're the pirates. Like, you know, they just own it. And Draven Bosch, he's like just the loser, like, you know, used car salesman, like kind of vibe that he tries to go behind your back. And I just don't like that. I don't respect that level of villainous
if I'm gonna
or piracy.
Yeah, if I'm gonna compare them, and this might fall flat on his face, but like Raxlow is the guy who's gonna like steal your bush out front because it's like gonna help him power some other weird thing. Draven's the guy who's gonna steal your dog or like like something way more personal, like a family heirloom he's going to take from your house. Like it's way more personal and makes me so much more mad.
He's going to steal your dog. That's good. Also, Eunice is voiced by the same person. I forgot to look up the name. It's voiced by the same person. Eunice is the person that's going to be collecting the XD Speedster and getting like a payday to help drive Draven out. Voiced by the same person who voices that character in Monsters, Inc. that says, "You forgot to do your paperwork last night, Wazowski. I'm watching you. Always watching." Like, it's the same person that voices that character as voicing this one.
Because I mean, kids nowadays might not watch Monsters, Inc., but like our whole generation. Our
They've
whole
seen
generation.
I'm in the middle school, teach middle school. They've seen Monsters Inc.
I never want to assume, but I mean, there's 30 years
We've
of
seen, oh yeah,
humans that know this voice. I love
yes.
that Young Jedi Adventures got her.
So also I didn't confirm that. I heard that voice. I was like, that has to
And
be.
it has to
That's
be.
her. Like I was like, that has to be. And so like I know they watch it. One of my kids, we were doing this categories game, and they had to name colleges and universities. You can't repeat one. You only have like 3 seconds to answer. It's like really fast paced. And one kid said Monsters University as because they ran on Monsters University. I was like, I'll allow it. Let's go. There we go. I'll allow it. Last couple thoughts here. Those massives, watching Liz like connect to the massives who are about to like attack Uncle Lugs, but then she literally had them rolling on their bellies to help them, and it helped them save the day. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. Leave it to Liz to interact with the animals. And of course, it's the like vicious ones that are going to rip your face off. And she's like, no, I got this. It'll be fine. And lo and behold, it is. Liz is just goated when it comes to animals. She cannot be beat.
She is goated. I would love her and Ezra to hang out for a little bit.
Oh, what a good time.
Also, but except Ezra would totally corrupt her.
He would.
Like she's like the perfect little youngling,
man.
and he would totally corrupt. He's like, we could use these animals to like go into town and steal some loot runs.
Yeah, and then Hera finds out it's a whole ordeal. Zeb's along with it too.
Zeb's like, I guess I'll tag along, kind of thing.
I'm so glad that they finally powered up this XD7 ship and flew it out there, because I'm like, guys, like this is a hot rod we're talking about. This is a great ship. Fire it up, fly it out. And finally we do.
It's like being gifted the Batmobile and never taking it out for a spin.
Come on, like, yes. Get that thing out there.
So part 2, last one for tonight. Nash's super busy day. Essentially, Nash is taking over the family business for a day. Moms are out of town, and Kai is going to help her out with some shipments. And Kai basically learns that the service industry is no joke. Thoughts?
I have never worked in the service industry, but I have so much respect for those who do, because I don't think it's an easy job. I think that's a very hard job. My fiance has worked many times in the service industry with coffee and stuff. Like, utmost respect for putting up with the public and running your tail off every hour of every day. I'm so glad Kai kind of got bit in the butt by this lesson, because I don't like to see people who are like, I could be a waiter, and it's the most entitled person you've ever seen. Like,
and he's not like being a waiter, but he is making these like deliveries that have to be on time, communicating, organization, like all of this. And he gets it all wrong, delivers the shipments to all the wrong places, crashes the Firehawk, all while Nash is trying to handle things on the home front. But this is not the worst thing that happens in this episode. Do you know the worst part about this episode?
I don't know if I do. What would be the worst part of this?
The fact that Nash's moms seem to always be on some trip, leaving Nash like overworked and overrun. Like 3 episodes prior or whatever, when they literally go on a trip and they come back, they're like whining and dining this businessman. They're like, hey, Nash, make sure everything is perfect when we get back for the sale. I'm like, why can't she go on the trip to help? And one of the moms stay back and they help. And now it's like the busiest time of the year, and they're both happen to be gone on their vacation. No, this is called child abuse. Okay. They're just like taking their vacations in the busiest time in there because they know that their daughter is the most capable daughter in the galaxy.
Maybe it says something to how much they trust her and how much faith they have in her. Maybe we could view that as a good thing. Also, she's 10. Don't do that.
Also, she's 10. So we have to talk about how Nash is so respected as a 9-year-old or whatever, 10-year-old. Like, these people are coming to her with these giant orders, and they're just accepting her word that like it's all gonna get done. And whenever like Kai drops it off and he mentions like name drops Nash, like, oh, okay, I trust you then. If Nash trusts you, I trust you.
Yeah, I mean, but she's got a lot of street cred. She's only 10, but she's been in this for her whole life. Like, she's also super confident. If you watch the show, she is very confident in herself in a very good way, good connotation. Like, I think that just exudes to everyone else who interacts with her.
Like I genuinely think this was Kai's worst episode of the season in terms of blunder. Like he made so many blunders in this one. It was so bad. I was like cringing watching him make mistake after mistake and then crash the Firehawk on top of it. I was like, oh my goodness, Nash is a way better friend than me. Like you just screwed up the business and you crashed my ship.
And that's a little part of it is like, hey, Kai, like be careful. Deliver all these. Also, added instruction explicitly, I'm telling you, be careful with my ship. Don't do anything crazy with it. And he's like, I wonder how fast I can fly it. Like, no. Like,
he says, punch it in.
Yeah.
So one of the species there, what is Bing quadranaris species? Do you know that off the top of your head? Because it looked like we had a Bing quadranaris sighting. Obviously not him, but like the species.
Shoot. The quadranaris species, I am not sure off the top of my head.
That is really heartbreaking, actually. We haven't, ladies and gentlemen, we have not had a moment on the podcast like this in a while. It's been, I think, since like episode like 4 or 5 of Young Jedi Adventures that Luke failed to know a Star Wars species. Granted, he knows about every Star Wars species in the galaxy, so that's saying something. But that doesn't mean I'm not a little bit sad right now. It's like whenever you know the star athlete or someone that you really respect just makes one mistake and you are just reminded that they're not perfect godlike individuals.
I will throw this in there. I think the reason I'm even like this is it's like osmosis. I don't study this stuff, but I read a lot of Star Wars books, and they'll explain characters using their like species, and there's just like not any books. This species is like not used for anyone else. Grand Quadranaris is maybe the only Tung that I know. I looked it up. Tung.
So, what is Salacious B. Crumb species again?
Kowakian monkey lizard. Like the
Kowakian monkey lizard. So we saw him. I love like the iconic Kowakian monkey lizard like laugh. Like I can't do it. My voice is going away right now. Like I can't hit that high pitched note that I need to like make this happen. But it's so iconic. Like you recognize that anywhere, right?
Yeah. If you've seen Return of the Jedi one time, you will know.
So basically, they get everything delivered and they are able to clean it up. They work together. Kai calls in Liz and Nubs to help make this happen, and Nash forgives him. They work together and everything's perfect. There's just one bone I have to pick with this episode, and that's it. So Hap, his order that he had from the Durango family is one ladle. This man had to order a cross-planetary ladle. How many? And it's what do you need a cross-planetary ladle for? My question to you is not how important is this ladle. My question to you is how many variations of a ladle are there? Like, how do you scale up in terms of ladle? Like, I feel like there's just like bad ladles that aren't, good. They leak out on the sides too much, or they're a little flimsy, but and then there's good ladles. Like what he needs to order one from the other side of the sector.
And you're assuming it's from the other side of the sector. I was assuming, we don't know the map yet. I was assuming he just like lives in the same town as Nash. Like, what? Can you not walk? Your legs broke, dude? Go walk and get it from her shop on your off day or something, or before the shop opens. What are we doing?
They're like the ethical Amazon of Tanu, because like he flew to different planets too to like deliver some goods like that are in the area. So I'm assuming like maybe his got delivered here and they're going to make sure that he gets it. But I'm wondering like, why do you need like why do you need a ladle all the way from Nal Hutta on the other side of the thing in order to serve soup?
True. Yeah. Can't be needed. You could probably just whittle one out from the tree that you live in, dude. Like,
come on, Hap. Come on, Hap. Anyway, that will wrap us up here on the Timeline Show. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Check us out, Apple, Spotify, at Star Wars News Net. Like and subscribe. You can check out Luke and I here every Saturday for the next piece of canon material in the timeline. Next week, we will be in the last episode of Young Jedi Adventures Season 1, the season finale, which is like 50 minutes long. I would love to see the look on the younglings' faces who watch Young Jedi Adventures, trying to figure out why their show that's normally broken up in 2 parts is like one giant part that's 45 minutes long. Like, it's kind of funny to me. Looking forward to that. It's going to be a good discussion. Make sure you check out Star Wars Newsnet Live every Thursday at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. By the time this comes out, we'll be transitioning into next Thursday, which should be part 3 of our What If series. We'll be in the sequel era / some Mandoverse era of the timeline, talking about everything like post Return of the Jedi, like what if scenarios going on in the movies and the shows. Should be a really fun discussion. Make sure you check out the previous 2 What If episodes that have come out the last couple of Thursday nights. On the Monday pod, you can check out the upcoming Monday pod, which will be Luke and I doing a look at the 10-year anniversary of Rebels, which I believe is coming up on October 4th, next Friday. And we're going to do a deep dive into our favorite Rebels moments, our favorite Rebels characters, the arcs that we love the most, the music that we love the most. We're going to just give a love letter to Rebels on Monday. And the master, like Luke Sheehan himself, has a special place. Rebels has a very special place in his heart. I love Rebels, but yes. Luke, that's like your favorite show. So I cannot wait to hear your comments on Star Wars Rebels for the Monday pod. Thank you all for listening. Check out StarWarsNewsNet.com for all of your Star Wars news and updates covering books, comics, everything, toys, theme parks, shows, upcoming movie news, whatever. It's all there, okay? Love you all. We'll see you next time. For Light and Life, remember that we are all the Republic.